back to the Who's Right podcast, and spring training is upon us. Baseball season is starting, and we can't be excited. I know you can't see him, but Victor's going to be joining us on audio. He's pulling some daddy duty, so you're going to hear his voice and see me still a couple times. But before we get into all of that, subscribe to the channel, like this video. Tell us how you're feeling in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And Victor, how you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm doing great, man. You're gonna might hear some coos, a little groans. They're eating right now, so I'm pulling some daddy duty. But how could I not join you guys? It's baseball season officially. Super Bowl's over, football's over. Spring training is here. We got a game in less than 2 weeks. And man, I can't be more excited to talk about what these Mets are going to look like going into the 2025 season. So let's get into it, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, and just like the title says, we're going to talk about the lineup and stuff like that. And before we get into that, I want to break down the roster. And I'm talking about the active roster, the 26 man, not the 40 man, the 26 man roster. And right now, this is what I believe it's going to look like. On the pitcher side, we got Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, Frankie Montas, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and a combination of Paul Blackburn, Griffin Canning, or Tyler McGill for that sixth spot, right? And then for the relievers, we have this is my prediction, anyways. Edwin Diaz, Ryan Stanek, Reed Garrett, Jose Budo, AJ Minter, um, and I believe that Daniel Nunez is going to start on the IL because I don't know if he's fully healthy. I think that was a big part of the Stanek signing, and I think the final guy in the roster that's going to make it is Sean Reed Foley because even though he's often injured. I think he always starts the year pitching. So I don't know about you. What do you think about that, Victor?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting because David Stearns has this philosophy where no one has a guaranteed roster spot going into spring training. A lot of these guys are fighting for the spot. Even Sean Reed Foley, who was offered a deal to avoid arbitration this year, what is not safe on the roster. We know that that doesn't matter to David Stearns, and so it could be a Huascar Brazaban that comes in and takes that spot. It could be Danny Young that takes that spot. We just don't know. We know for sure on the reliever front is that AJ Minter is going to be the setup man. Edwin Diaz is going to be the closer. And then you'll have some guys mixed in because even Reed Garrett, if he doesn't perform well and he's proven that he needs some time, he's got some options on him. But they can send him down to AAA, give him some time to work on some stuff. And David Stearns, we know, is not afraid to sign another reliever to fill in those roles. And so, I don't know about the reliever market, but the good thing about all of our starting pitchers is if we don't have enough arms on the reliever front, a lot of these guys are able to just pitch out of the bullpen. Guys like Griffin Canning, although he's probably going to start as a starter, has the flexibility to move into the bullpen. Same with Clay Holmes. If he doesn't come off to a hard start, and I know they're going to give him like a 4 month or what is David Stern's philosophy into like a 6 month or half the year period to kind of figure it out. But like we know from last year, this is going to look so much different than it was from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And no one is safe. That's what I love, and also kind of and nervous about David Stern's roster construction.
Well, he leaves it open for flexibility, right? And that's something that we may be a little bit uncomfortable with. But that's something that sometimes is needed, because you see sometimes these teams get stuck with the guys that they have because, of either their salary or what have you. Obviously, we don't have those full restraints on us, but there's always some, and we can't always say that money's going to be the end all be all, and we're going to throw money at everything. There's always a limit to everything. So I like the flexibility, and I'm with you. It's hard to kind of swallow sometimes because we want to have our full team right away, right from the beginning. But it's something that if we would have stayed with the team that we had at the beginning of the year last year, we may not have made it into the playoffs last year. But we made a whole bunch of changes starting in May, June. And we made it to 2 games shy of the World Series, and so I'm okay with this, especially with the bullpen that you can do all these changes in. And we got some security, like you said, AJ Minter, Ryan Stanek. You got Edwin Diaz in the back, and so those guys are given. And in that middle part of the bullpen, it's whoever performs, and I love to see that. So we're
Yeah,
gonna
no,
move
I'm
into.
excited. I'm excited to see it too. It's going to be a competitive spring training, where these guys are all fighting for the spot. That's what makes, I think that's the biggest difference for me in this Steve Cohen, David Stearns era, is that things get exciting in spring training. You don't have to wait till opening day to watch good baseball because all of these guys are playing hard, from the position players to the relievers to the starting pitchers. They're trying to get warmed up, and a lot of them are fighting for a spot. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff, and hopefully everything comes out the way that we expect it to, because we don't like surprises and no one gets hurt.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. In my opinion, I do believe that Griffin Canning is going to get a shot. Uh, Maybe not as a starter because I think Blackburn's going to take that. But I do think that Tyler McGill is going to start at AAA at the beginning of the season, and Griffin Canning is going to be the long man in the bullpen. Just because at the beginning they're going to give him that shot and see what happens, unless he has a horrendous spring training. So we're going to move into the position players. So we got our outfield, our fielders set, right? Catcher Alvarez, Pete at first. Right now, McNeil at second. I'm not going to talk about any hypothetical trades or anything, but McNeil at second. Vientos at third. Um, our captain at short, Nimmo at left, Siri in center, and Soto in right. So that leaves Tyrone Taylor, Marte, Winker as our DH, and Terens. So that leaves one more spot, which I believe is going to be taken by Luis Angel Acuna. I know there was a lot of talk about Jose Iglesias coming back, but I think that ship has sailed unless there's a trade. But today I just want to talk about what's on our roster because I don't want to talk about hypotheticals because who knows what's going to happen. I don't see the only way I see Jose Iglesias coming back is Luis Angeles has a terrible spring, and or McNeil gets traded because I don't even see him coming back if if Marte gets traded. So I think our roster as far as the 13 fielders are set. But what do you think, Victor?
Yeah, to me, There are two competitive spots in spring training this year, and that's a big improvement from last year, where we had a few more of those spots. We know that Juan Soto's playing. We know that everyone that was signed this offseason is playing, plus everyone on a major contract. So to me, that leaves second base and center field to be up for competition. We know that even though Jeff McNeil is on a major contract and he won a batting title a couple years ago, last year wasn't great, and they weren't comfortable with him completely playing, because even when he came back healthy, they still elected to go with Jose Iglesias as some split time in the postseason. And that could be for different reasons, but I believe it's because they are not always so eager to bring Jeff McNeil in. I think his spot is up. Even though he's on a major league deal, he can play the bench piece where he can move around a bunch, and they're not afraid to do that, even with the money he's getting paid. And so, to me, and that goes for center field as well. Center field is a competitive spot between Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor are the two front runners for that spot. But like we talked about, we don't want to clog these spots for some of these young guys. And right now, there's an influx of outfielders. Some guys that can play center field with Jet Williams, even a Drew Gilbert, even though he's kind of getting off the spot, and a Luis Angel. And second base, there are an influx of infielders with Ronnie Mauricio and Luis Angel, and even Brett Beatty that can play the second base position. And so those are gonna be the two competitive spots to look at right now, in those spots. And it's interesting to think about, because they're not, they're all kind of. There's no guaranteed spot for those guys. I know that we went out and traded for Jose Siri, so there's a likelihood that he's going to start the year. But if Luis Angel comes out and guns a blazing, and Jeff McNeil just edges him out and good enough to play second base, then there's a chance that he takes Jose Siri's spot to start opening day, which is a crazy thing to think about. But honestly, I hope it happens. I'm glad that the Mets did it this way, because it doesn't clog up the chance for these young guys to come up, and hopefully these young guys can come out and show why they deserve to be on the opening day roster.
Yeah, no, for sure, and you're right about that. If McNeil's not hitting, he'll be just an expensive utility guy, and I could see that happening because he can play all over the field. So I could definitely see that. So let's transition into the lineup. Let's talk about it. Let's see, because we know what the rotation is, other than the six man, and we know the bullpen already. So see what the best lineup we think the Mets should throw out there. And I'll kick it off to you. I'll let you get this started. What's your lineup look like?
Dude, this rumble kind of like throws me off, because you have to press the mic button like four times to unmute yourself. So sorry guys, didn't mean to leave you guys on that awkward silence there. But for me, man, it's interesting to look at, because you can do so many things with this lineup now that Pete Alonso has come into the fold. And I know that wasn't the case, that one player doesn't change everything, but for me, one player kind of changes so much going into the year. So obviously, there are a few ways to construct this lineup, but you got the best leadoff hitter in the game with Francisco Lindor at one. You got Juan Soto hitting right behind him at two, and this is where it gets interesting, because you have two cleanup hitters that you can put in that 3 and 4 spot. So whether you go Vientos or you go Pete Alonso, it doesn't really matter to me where you put them. But for me, for the sake of Mark Vientos has done it 1 year and Pete Alonso has done it 5, I'm going with Pete Alonso in that 3 hole. and then giving Mark Vientos that opportunity to uh, play cleanup. Because to me, those guys are pretty much the same hitter. They have a lot of the same uh, um, uh, abilities where they swing for power, and their strikeout rates aren't great. And they're both kind of slow. They both can't steal bases, so you can't really differentiate the two when you put them in a lineup spot. But for me, I'm putting Pete at 3 because he can play, because he's proven to do it for longer. And I'd rather keep the lineup going 1, 2, 3, giving Pete Alonso more of those at bats when he can, and especially because he's in a semi-contract year. That's going to help him a lot, hopefully, to get those numbers up going into the offseason next year. And then this is where it gets really fun because I think it was Ryan Finkelstein that pointed this out on Locked On Mets that, dude, you can start the lineup right over again. You got Brandon Nimmo batting fifth. He was our leadoff hitter just a couple years ago, and now he can be our leadoff hitter again. He can be the guy that is starting off the lineup all over again in that 5 hole, and then you can go back into the well. You put whoever you want next. Obviously, you're gonna probably put one of your uh, younger guys in either a Jeff McNeil or not a younger guy, but whoever wins out that second base spot. Um, then you go back into um, uh, a uh, a Francisco Alvarez, give him the spot to kind of try to play clean up for that bottom part of the order, and then you're left with Jose Siri battling it out with um, I think that'd be it, right? That's it. Am I missing anybody in this lineup? To me, it sounds like everyone is interchangeable from that last kind of 4 spots, except for like maybe a Jose Siri. But even if he doesn't make the lineup, then we can put him there. Dude, we saw Tyrone Taylor bat second last year. I think we even saw him bat first last year and bat leadoff, and he had some good at bats. I was questioning it when Mendy made the selection, but it ended up working out. And so, man, it's a lot of fun to think that this lineup can have 2 leadoff hitters and 2 starting spots to the rotation or the spot. Sorry, the lineup, and you can even have 4 potential uh, kind of cleanup guys in this lineup that can hit close to 40 home runs. So amazing stuff, man. I can't speak enough about this lineup. Mendy's got his hands full in constructing it, and I don't think he can really get it wrong unless he like completely flips it on his head.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure, and that's not a bad lineup. You really can't. Other than preferences. We can't really go wrong with the lineup. For me, I would go Lindor. I would go Lindor, Soto, um, Vientos, Alonso. Just because I like Alonso as a cleanup hitter, he's seemed the most natural there. I know he's done a lot of batting third, but he's just seemed the most natural at 4 at the cleanup spot. And I know a lot of people have been talking about having him bat second, so Soto's protecting him. And I know that's been a talking point for the last 5 years or so about who's protecting Pete and who's protecting Pete, and honestly, Pete's got to protect Pete. Pete's got to stop swinging at those balls outside of the strike zone. I don't think that him batting in front of Soto is going to have him stop swinging at those pitches. And the argument is, well, he's going to see better pitches. Well, this is the MLB. You know, they're not going to give you better pitches unless you stop swinging at the bad pitches. And that's how it works. And so I just think he's more comfortable at 4, and I just don't see him cutting down his strikeout rate, and just because Soto's behind him. You know, Lindor didn't have a lot of people protecting him last year. You know, because the guy in front of you protects you just as much as the guy behind you. You know, everybody always talks about the protection coming from behind you, but the guy in front of you protects you just as much because he gets on base. And so, and there wasn't much. Um,
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. And the only thing I'll say is that Pete last year tried to take the average approach, where he was trying to get on base for average. And for me, he's got to take kind of like the Schwarber-ish approach, and that's going to help protect him a lot. Where he's hitting for power and hitting and getting on base a lot. He's got to take his walks and he's got to hit home runs. That's what he's got to do to protect himself this year. And I agree 100% where you're coming from with the protection for Pete. But you know, like I said, wherever you put Pete in the lineup, he has protection. If you put Nimmo behind him, that's protection, man. Like Nimmo used to hit leadoff, and he's an on base machine if he comes back to where he was. And we saw he was injured last year, and he even came back or at the beginning of the year he was hitting for power. And so he can be that protection for Pete. And so, like I said, for me, putting Pete fourth or putting Pete third is more about him getting more at bats, more about us seeing him in the first inning rather than the second, more often than not. And more likely than not, it's not going to matter where he gets on, where he bats, because Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor might just give him that opportunity because of their on base percentages being so high. And so that's the hope, right? That we don't have to worry about who bats where, because they're all going to get equal amount of at bats. But for me, it's getting him the most at bats by putting him at third.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about him getting the most at bats. I'm going to mute you for a second. I'm not worried about him getting the most at bats because I don't think he's long term for this team. So I'd rather have Vientos get more at bats if that's the case, if that's the argument. To be honest with you, even Nimmo, I would rather more at bats. But let's continue with this. Real quick.
I just gotta say, man, you're a hater, man. Not seeing Pete here long term. You're just you want him out. You're kicking him out the door before he starts opening day. What if he puts up a monster year and we sign him to a like a multi-year contract? Is there a bad echo on my part? Is that what's going on? Here?
Yeah, there's a little bit of an echo when you aren't talking. But yeah, no, it's not about being a hater. It's just I was on a space yesterday, and at the end of the day, Pete had his opportunities to be here long term. There are many contracts that have been offered to Pete, and he's not taking them. He had an option between two contracts, a 3-year contract and a 1-year contract, basically is what he has right now, and he chose the 1-year contract. So everybody thinks that Pete wants to be here long term, and Pete's just chasing the money. And the only thing that happened between him not going to Toronto and him coming here is that he didn't want to go to Toronto. He didn't want to go to Canada, and that's it. Because they were the only two teams.
Yeah. I agree with that. He wants the most money, but who's to say that the Mets aren't going to give him that most money? Because at the end of the day, we're still might be in a vacancy if Pete Alonso or if Mark Vientos proves that he's a long term third baseman. And I know you could say we have some guys coming up the pipe, but if he proves that he's a long term third baseman and Pete Alonso is a guy that proves that he's one of the best hitters in the game, like he's proven in the past, then the Mets might give him that contract, man. Let me know if I still got the echo, man. I'll still try to work on that as Franklin talks. And but I think that the Mets can be that competitive piece for Pete Alonso because at the end of the day, it was a perfect fit for us, and it could be a perfect fit for us next year, and we can see about making that a perfect fit next year. Because, like I said, there are only a few first basemen on the market. Obviously, Vladdy's at one, but who's going to be at two? Pete Alonso. And if we, it only depends on if we miss on Pete Alonso or on Vladdy. Sorry.
Yeah, and big shout out to Jonathan in the chat. Hopefully, we'll get that echo corrected. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to argue about Pete long term as far as Vladdy or any of those guys. I just think the writing's on the wall between Pete and the Mets, just because of Pete's actions and because Stearns doesn't want to sign a long-term declining player, and that's why I'm not worried about him batting a lot. I think four is fine, and Vientos is the guy that I'm worried about because he's the young guy coming up, and he's shown that he has the same power that Alonso has, and he's a young guy that we know is going to be on the team. So again, Lindor at the top, Soto. If you want to split up the righties and put Vientos at second and Soto at third, I don't have a problem with that. But I just don't think right now, because Vientos hasn't completely been proven yet, because he has to do it again this year, that you're going to split up Lindor and Soto. So Lindor, Soto, Vientos, Alonso. Nimmo, I think he's turned into a prototypical five hitter. Um, you know, at the end of the day, if you want to argue with me that you want Alonso three, I can live with that. For me, my opinion, I don't see it. But if you want to split up those two righties and put Nimmo in between them, maybe Alonso three, Nimmo four, and Vientos five, just to split them up. But at the end of the day, you're going to have, either a lefty lefty or a righty righty somewhere in this lineup. So I'd rather see my two power bats go back to back in Vientos and Alonso, and then Nimmo at five. And this is the one that nobody has. I haven't seen it yet, and I have Alvarez at six. To split Winker and Nimmo up, because I believe that Alvarez is going to have a big year. He's uh, going to do it. I think last year, with him being hurt and him trying so much, I think that kind of hurt him. And so, I think Alvarez is going to be at six, and then we have Winker at seven. As you know, and this is mainly right-handed for a right-handed pitcher because that's the most that we're going to see. But obviously, it's going to look a little different when Marte's in the lineup as a DH. But Winker at seven, and again, you can do a mix and match here. If you want to split up the two lefties between McNeil and Winker, you can put Siri at eight and then McNeil at nine, or the other way around. It doesn't really matter. I think those two guys are interchangeable. Unless McNeil's hitting the ball like crazy, then I would I'd actually still, if McNeil's hitting the ball like crazy, I would love to see him at 9. That way he gets on base for Lindor. But that's my lineup. And again, this is nothing against Pete. I just looking at the best part of our lineup, and I think Vientos, if he does it again, is deserves to be up there in that first inning. And like you said, with the first inning thing, I think one of those guys, if not both, are going to be on base most games. So we're regardless of where Pete bats, he's going to get that first inning at bat regardless. I believe.
Yeah, no, that's a good, and that's what I said, man. Like where you bat Pete or Vientos might not matter because with the amount of with Soto's on base percentage, he's just so good that most likely more often than not. He's getting on base in that first inning and giving an opportunity for Vientos or Pete to get that at bat. Man, how could I miss uh, Winker from that lineup or Marte, whoever is batting that day? But that's a good point about Alvarez. I think he will have a bounce back season. He obviously had that sophomore slump last year, but the great thing about those two hitters is that they can both, well, minus Marte, Winker and Alvarez, if they get full seasons, can probably combine for 50 to 60 home runs in a season. And so to me, yeah, like you said, it doesn't matter where you bat them. Nimmo's obviously going to be at 5, but then once you get to that 6 or 7, you can interchange them. You can do Alvarez on days that Marte's DHing, or Winker on days that he's DHing, and might not matter. But I do like the idea of giving Alvarez more at bats because at the end of the day, he's only 22 years old and he's going to be here for a long time. We see him as our long term guy, and Marte and Winker are only here for this year, and I'd rather give the guy that's going to be here longer a more at bats. So that's a good point. Love to see that. And what do you think about this? What if we don't just throw away the 9 hole, depending on who's batting at that 9 hole. What if to give uh, Brandon Nimmo some time and to kind of give an opportunity to maybe a young guy if they're playing at that spot, and moving everybody up. You bat Nimmo ninth, get him off his feet more. Give him that second leadoff spot. I know that's not ideal because of the amount of money we're paying him, but to me, you're extending that lineup. There's really gonna be no holes in that lineup if you bat him ninth because what are you gonna do? You're batting him ninth. You have to pitch to him because guess who's up next? Francisco Lindor, and that's gonna be a dangerous spot to be in if you're a pitcher or a manager trying to decide what to do. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's not a bad idea, but I think that was Nimmo of a couple years ago. I think Nimmo's bat has evolved a little bit as far as more of a power bat and more of a driving in runs bat. And so I think he's become a prototypical 4-5 hitter now. He still has the great on base percentage, but he is looking to drive in runs now. So I think he's changed the way his approach is. He's become more of a wanting to drive in runs and home runs kind of guy. And so if it's foot's okay, I believe that he's gonna have a monster year at driving in runs because as much as we love Vientos and Pete, they're not going to drive all the runs, and so I think Nimmo's gonna be a big part of driving in runs, and and Nimmo is going to get some rest. That DH spot is going to be used a lot by our regular players. I think Winker is going to play a lot of left field in the beginning of the season to give Nimmo some rest. And I could see Nimmo playing a lot of DH just to stay off his feet as much as possible. But as far as the 9 hole, I just think he's changed his approach and is a different hitter now. So I kind of like if McNeil's hitting, or series change his approach and become more of an on base guy. Um, I would love to see Siri at 9 because if he's changed. Become more of an on-base guy, with his speed in front of Lindor, that would be dangerous for to have Lindor driving in those runs from the bottom of the lineup.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We often forget that before he got hurt, he was. Sorry, I gotta take this, but
Yeah, that's all good.
um,
It's all good.
yeah, no, before he got hurt, he was leading the team in RBIs. That's all I wanted to say. And so, giving him the most amount of at bats is important.
Yeah, no, for sure. And and Jonathan in the chat is talking about next year about the free agent first basemen. You got Vladdy Murakami, yeah, potentially Yandy Diaz, even Kyle Schwarber coming out next season. So it's going to be a lot of players next season at first. So who knows what's going to happen at first base for us next year. And so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm not worried about it. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't think Alonso's here long term. At most, a couple more years. Even if he has a good season, I don't see us giving him a long term contract. I see somebody else giving him a long term contract, but I don't see the Mets doing it. I don't think that's Stern's philosophy. But at the end of the day, it's all about this year. The season has started. Spring training, pitchers and catchers officially report tomorrow, and we're gonna probably get out of here because we're just excited for the season and we want to see these guys on the field. I know the captain already showed up. You had Diaz, Minaya. All those guys show up yesterday, a day early, a couple days early. You had Nimmo already here last week, and a couple of young guys. But pitchers and catchers officially report tomorrow, and it's on. So we're gonna finish it there. We're gonna get out of here. But before we get out of here, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let us know what you're thinking about the lineup. What's your best lineup? Give us in the comments. Let us know what your best lineup is, and let's see what we see at the opening day. Victor, before we get out of here, any last words?
No, man, I'm excited for it to happen. One of these years, we're gonna make it down to Port St. Lucie and watch this competitive baseball going on. But until then, excited for the season to start in just 11 days. It's so exciting. And it's crazy to think that we're excited about spring training ball going into the year, because usually we're not thinking about baseball until until opening day, and so excited that this is the new Mets that we get to be a part of and celebrate. So let's go Mets, baby.
Let's go Mets. Baseball is here.